So, you want to roll Sfoglia. Let's make some pasta. Okay, starting with the basics. Just a few things to go over. One thing I've noticed about my own form and my technique is that having trimmed nails can greatly affect how your end result and your Sfoglia comes out. A lot of the times during Rulo, where you're stretching the dough, especially on your thumbs, you can get caught and it can tear the Sfoglia. So what I do is I tend to trim the insides of my thumbnails to avoid that friction and tearing, okay? General hygiene, please. When you wash your hands, you always want to have your sleeves rolled up past the elbow. But when you're washing, you have skin everywhere. So wherever there's visible skin, wash all the way up to your elbow because we're dealing with fresh food. Okay. Make sure that your Mattarello is clean and dry. Okay. We don't want any little particles of Sfoglia or dough to be resting on this tool. Okay. One thing I like to do with my egg dough is I like to put it on a little cloth pedestal, okay? And while it's coming to room temperature, there's some condensation that can happen, okay? And I really like the presentation. It looks beautiful, but it helps with the moisture condensation that happens on the outside of the plastic if you pull it from a refrigerator. So let's take a moment, okay, and let's talk a little about the process of rolling a Sfoglia. Okay, for me, I like to pause, do a little meditation, and think about this whole process before I engage. We want to be present, we want to be fully focused and attuned to each movement that we're doing. So really, one thing I do is I'll go through making this whole Sfoglia beforehand, once or twice. And what that does is, it's a lot like Formula One racers where they're driving at a very, very fast speed. They're extremely focused and they know each turn. They know the moisture of the track that day. They know the types of wheels that they have on their race car. They've memorized their map and layout of the course, and they're as fully prepared as possible to engage in their activity, just like we want to do here in preparation. So what I mean by preparation is I should and you should be able to roll this Sfoglia out completely in your mind before even engaging in the activity. I know that I'm going to undo the pleats. I'm going to gently remove it from the plastic, throw the plastic out in a specific way. Add dusting flour. Create a disc with my fingers before starting to roll. I'm going to make 3 movements forward and 3 movements back and turn it, and 3 more movements forward and 3 movements back with the Mattarello and turn it and continue to work it in that way until I reach a new step, which is the stretching of the dough and then working the edges of the dough. And so being present here and being prepared here is just as important as, of course, there's many ways to roll Sfoglia. A lot of the times I just want to have fun and enjoy this process, I can roll up on it. I can flip it, undo the plastic really quick, and make movements that aren't very specified, but that are just going by feeling, okay? And it's a very enjoyable way to roll. But as we go through the progression of rolling out Sfoglia, again, the first Sfoglia here, beginner, or where to start, and common movements, all the way to the end where it's a mixture of having dedicated movements and knowing what you're getting into with each movement, in combination with really feeling the process and feeling your technique and your form and your flow and your deep state of doing something over and over again, you know, in combination with just having fun with it and moving around and dancing. Okay, so touching on dancing, one thing I wanted to cover is that naturally I'm very introverted and quiet, and I keep to myself, and in a way I'm not so much shy. I'm very able to communicate publicly and be around multiple people, but one thing I love very much about rolling Sfoglia is that it allows me to kind of break out of my shell and dance, if you will, and express my art and my passion in a way that I never really thought was possible, as to why I love it so much. So if you're watching this video, I'm sure you can relate, that there's something in your life, some person or way of living, or an activity. Hopefully it's Sfoglia, so we can relate that much more. But for me, this is my dance and my love manifested into a physical act. So please enjoy the video. This first video will be a very basic beginner, here's where we start, type of rolling Sfoglia, and then we'll progress to a lot more movements that are, I wouldn't say difficult, but with time and practice, they become easier, and it's a little more advanced in nature. Okay, so let's roll some Sfoglia. Okay, starting with our first dough, we're going to be incorporating very simple movements, very simple stretching techniques, going over, really importantly, one of the first things you should note is that when dusting a Sfoglia or your board, is you always want to create a cloud and not just putting a large amount of flour in a concentrated space, okay? It's going to cause more drying due to the unevenness of the placed flour on your dough. So more moisture is going to accumulate here and dry out quicker in this spot of this Sfoglia. So we always want to dust properly and create a cloud, okay? So we have our dough, we unwrap it. Bottom side, we dust first, okay? And then we flip over and we dust the top to avoid sticking here. One thing I'm going to do with this Sfoglia is every single thought that I have, I'm going to sort of guide you or voice my thoughts on each movement so you can follow along with these very simple movements and this simple technique. Okay, so we've dusted the bottom, we've dusted the top. We're going to do some pats just to really feel if there's any larger amount of dough in one portion or one edge and less dough in another. And we can begin to start our manipulation here by maybe pushing more dough to a place where there isn't as much as the other. Okay, so an even disc. Turn, turn, and it feels pretty uniform. Okay, so at this point we're going to pick it up and feel again for any unevenness and see if we can, you know, manipulate our fingers to push more dough into a spot where it may be uneven, or there might be a bellow, okay? Pretty even. There's some spots, some minuscule spots where I could see I need to kind of push a little dough into a certain spot, okay? So after that, make sure you're removing all the moisture from your hands so it doesn't attach dough or create more friction on the Mattarello as needed, okay? Add a little more flour on top. And then we begin. So we have our disc, we bring our Mattarello to center, and we can do 1, 2, 3, back to center, 1, 2, 3, back to center, or you could do one even movement back to center, or one back movement back to center. And then a smoothing out movement 2 or 3 times, turn. And this line is good because you're pushing out flour and you don't have any excess flour underneath. Again, 1, 2, 3, back, or one long movement back to center. And then 1, 2, 3 to even it out. At this point, we're at a good size or diameter where we can start to use longer movements to stretch our dough. And it's not about pressure and pushing down, but it's more if you visualize, if I were here at this level, I'm stretching, I'm pushing, and I'm stretching this way, not down, because it will degas your dough and it will release air from this sfoglia. And we want as much air as possible. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, turn, 1, 2, 3, turn, 1, 2, 3, turn, 1, 2, 3, turn, and I'm going to do this a couple times. One, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm feeling a little bit of sticking underneath. So what I'm going to do is bring my sfoglia over the top, move a little bit of flour underneath so it doesn't stick, and continue with 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's getting large enough where I can begin to roll it back on itself. Address the dryness of the board. And turn, okay? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And so on. Turn. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Back on itself. Address the board. Turn. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now you'll see that I'm addressing the board, I'm turning, I'm unraveling. I'm going left, right, center, or right, left, center, okay? It's easier to begin with just going center, 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 and turning like this. Center, 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 stretching the dough. Turning. Center, center, center. Turning. Center, center, center. Center, center, center. Turning. So with this first Sfoglia, we can focus on really the simple movement of only using the top center part, or only manipulating the center part in our rolling process, okay? So let's stick with that. We're only gonna work the center. And we're gonna turn. And we're only gonna work the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're gonna turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now you can do as many repetitions. I'm going 3s and 7s just because I'm seeing my dough and I'm reaching a point where my bordo is only stretching it to a length and it's stopping. So we need to incorporate Rulo, which is the next step. So really quick, we've gone over, you know, our initial movements of undoing the plastic, dusting, how to dust. We've got our simple movements, front and back and turning. And now we've just finished, you know, our center movements of however many times you feel that it gets to a point, and now we can move on to Rulo, okay? So Rulo is very important. It's how you stretch the dough. You're gonna bring the dough back over on itself. Look at the board. See if there's any moisture spots, okay? Address that with more flour. And like a C, we're gonna go and we're not gonna press down, but we're just gonna go forward and stretch forward, okay? Forward and stretch forward. Now, we've gotten pretty large. We've maybe added a third just by very simple Rulos to the overall length of our sheet of Sfoglia. So we're gonna unravel. And there's a line here which this dough has been pushed up to the outer edge, okay? And now after a Rulo, we work the border to make it one even consistent thinness, okay? You can do left, right, and center. Okay, maybe add a little more flour. Go left, right, and center again. And then we're gonna do the bottom. and we're gonna flip it. So now we're working the bottom. Here we take it back over itself, bring it here to about center, and with C's, we're going to stretch forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, and let it go. And again, we have our line where the dough from the center has been pushed up towards the edge. And we can go left, right, and center. Again, left, right, and center. Now we've worked the bottom now. Okay, we worked the top first, now the bottom. Now we're gonna turn it. Okay, and we're gonna work, this would actually be the right side initially, but now we're gonna make it the top. And just like before, we're gonna bring it back over. And we're gonna stretch. Two, 3, 4. Okay, we go left, center, left, right, center. Now we'll do the bottom, or initially the left side. We're gonna flip. Left, center. We're gonna flip it back over itself and stretch. 2, 3, 4, and unravel. And again, we've got our line here. This dough has been pushed up towards the edge, and we can even out the edge now. Left, right, center, center left, and now maybe one Rulo and turn it. Right, center, left, one Rulo, and turn. Left, right, center, one Rulo, and turn. Now keep in mind, it is very, very humid where I am right now. So I'm getting a very quick drying of my Sfoglia. And there's a lot of cracks and unevenness. But on the next one, I think to try avoiding that, what I'll do is I'll move a little quicker and I'll do it silently so you can watch me roll a Sfoglia quietly and maybe kind of go over what we've learned right here and see if you can match. Okay, he's going right, he's going center, he's going left, he's ruloing, he's doing Bordeaux, working the edges. So the next one you can follow along while I do it silently. Not that it's bad, but it can be much prettier, much nicer if I was putting a little more focus into the rolling and not so much the communication here. And with the next one, we'll go over kind of a next step, which is if you have a valley or a peak, something up, you know, and you have this valley here, how to manipulate these peaks and valleys in order to achieve real round sfoglia, okay? So I'm just gonna get this even. And then lastly, let's talk about degassing. Okay, so after I do a movement and I place my sfoglia back on the table and I unroll, there's going to be instances where there's a little pocket of air here or maybe over here, and I want to degas the dough by doing a single roll to vacate that air from underneath the sfoglia, so that when I'm rolling, what happens is if there's air, you create a little blip or a rollover in your dough where you get a little notch, okay? And it's sfoglia coming back on top over the sheet of sfoglia underneath, and you create a little ridge, and it's not good for consistency or mouthfeel. So to avoid this little blip or this little ridge that occurs due to not properly degassing your dough or your sheet, all you have to do is, after you take your sfoglia and you place it back down onto your table, give it a degas, okay? And that should solve this problem. Straight. Really rough. It's very, very dry. Again, in the next video, we'll try and see what we can do to fix the quick drying, okay, and the crusty edges. But let's see where we're at. Not bad. Okay, little blip here. Take a step back, look at it, see where maybe you can improve. You've rolled this sfoglia, you've gone through all these movements, and now really reflect after you've rolled on things you can improve upon. It's very important. It's okay to take 2 minutes after you've rolled and said, okay, well, it's pretty darn consistent, meaning the thinness, it's uniform throughout the whole sfoglia, but you know, it's dry out, it's really screwing up my edges, or it's taking me a long time to roll a sfoglia. Hence, this problem can occur as well, where you take a long time and the excess time creates more of a drying period in between each movement, thus creating a skin, okay, or texture. What else? I may have over dusted flour. So the next one I can use a little less flour and still achieve a similar result. What else? really analyze everything, okay? So from afar, it looks even and consistent. I think for basic movements and seeing, you know, earlier I talked about in the egg dough how shaping really affects the overall uniformity of the circumference or the roundness of the sfoglia. I can see I have a peak here, okay? I have a slight indentation here, a slight indentation here, and a peak here. So what that literally translates to is you imagine I'm forming my egg dough ball to roll a sfoglia, and I'm making all these movements, okay, to make my dough ball circular. This indentation, this little valley, is where my palm has come and brought dough over, where it creates a peak on both sides. So this is quite literally a translation of my hand movement, okay? Bringing dough over the center to close the back end or the back door. And maybe on the next time that I make egg dough, I could be a little more gentle with pulling dough over so I don't have such of a dramatic indentation here or valley. And then I can also decrease my valleys by maybe using a little less pressure. So it's more uniform. Smells good. Again, very simple movements, okay? Don't be afraid to touch your dough and move it, okay? By the very nature of gluten and protein structures, these little indentations that I'm making will come back and reset to their natural state that I stretch them to. So, you know, within 30 seconds, these little divots that I've made with my fingers will go away and it'll come back to its original set point that I've stretched it to. So feel your dough, really feel your dough, move it, manipulate it, okay? Not too bad, but definitely room for improvement. But I think the major thing is the dryness really affecting the rolling right now. Okay, so thank you for watching. The next one I'll do silently, and you can follow along and kind of assess maybe where you think you need improvement, or maybe I've missed something. In the comments, you just, oh, you know, you should have done this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, thank you.